The taste of copper in my mouth was the first thing. Not from my own blood, not yet. It was the memory of the explosion, the searing heat, the way the world fractured into shrapnel and screams. They said it was a surgical strike. Felt like a fucking massacre. One moment we were a squad, brotherhood forged in fire and shadow. The next, a blinding flash, and I was clawing my way out of the wreckage, deafened, disoriented, with nothing but the echoing silence where my brothers used to be. My comms were dead. My rifle a twisted piece of scrap. The intel was flawless, they'd promised. A simple snatch and grab. In and out. But nothing about this night was simple. Now, a siren's distant wail cuts through the urban sprawl. Getting closer. Not for rescue. Never for rescue. For me. They've already labeled me hostile, unauthorized, kill on sight. My own government. The people I swore to protect. The chilling realization hits harder than any explosion. I wasn't just left behind. I was set up. A pawn sacrificed on a board I didn't even know existed. My ribs scream with every ragged breath. A rhythmic protest against the concrete jungle I'm navigating. Rain lashes down, cold and unforgiving, washing away the evidence of who I was, leaving only the primal urge to survive. But survival isn't enough. Not anymore. Not when the truth is a venomous secret festering beneath the surface. Someone orchestrated this. Someone wants me dead. And they don't care who they have to bury with me. The world outside the blast zone is just as dangerous. A labyrinth of shadows and watchers. Every step is a gamble. Every glance a potential trap. The clock isn't ticking down to an escape. It's counting down to a confrontation. And I'm coming for answers, even if it means dragging the whole corrupt system down with me. In the quiet solitude of his apartment, a pristine white envelope lay like a phantom limb, an unwelcome relic from a life he'd painstakingly buried. Liam Maxwell, a man who once navigated the shadows of global intelligence, now found solace in the mundane rhythm of coded lines on a screen. But this wasn't data. This was an invitation, embossed with the names of Sarah Vance and Victor Thorne, delivered with the chilling elegance of a final decree. The ornate script, the opulent shimmer of the cardstock, it all felt like a deliberate taunt. A surge of melancholic nostalgia washed over him, painting fleeting images of a sun-drenched beach, Sarah's laugh echoing against the waves, her hand intertwined with his. Then, resentment, sharp and cold, cut through the warmth. The past was a minefield and this invite a tripwire. He crushed the expensive card in his hand, the sharp edges digging into his palm, a physical manifestation of the wound it had reopened. Days bled into a restless week, the phantom ache of Sarah's ghost refusing to dissipate. Then, an unassuming package, mailed with the anonymity of a bulk order, arrived. Inside, nestled amongst cheap packing peanuts, was a trinket. A crudely made, wooden keychain, etched with the logo of a forgotten seaside cafe, a place only he and Sarah would remember. Liam almost tossed it, another fragment of a life he'd discarded. But as his thumb idly traced the worn surface, a microscopic imperfection snagged his attention. A hairline scratch, barely visible, disrupting the grain of the wood. His trained eye, accustomed to detecting anomalies in the most innocuous details, registered it. It wasn't random. It was precise, almost deliberate. A flicker of suspicion, cold and sharp, ignited in the quiet chambers of his mind, demanding a closer look. This cheap memento felt far too heavy now. The flicker of doubt became a burning certainty. Liam retreated to the hidden depths of his apartment, a clandestine sanctuary where his past life lay dormant. Old gear, meticulously maintained, hummed to life. A microscanner, an infrared viewer, a spectrum analyzer. The keychain, once a trivial keepsake, transformed under the cold, clinical glow of his equipment. The hairline scratch bloomed into a network of impossibly fine lines, a micro-engraving intricate and deliberate. He recognized the pattern, a dead-drop code he and Sarah had perfected years ago. His fingers flew across the keyboard, a flurry of decryption algorithms, the tension mounting with each flickering line of code. Then, The words materialized, stark and chilling. Help. Thorn. Wedding. Don't trust anyone. The air thickened, charged with the sudden, brutal reality. Sarah was trapped, and he was her last hope. The decoded message hammered into him, a relentless drumbeat of dread. Help! The word echoed, a ghost from their shared past, cutting through the carefully constructed walls around his heart. Was it a trap, an elaborate lure to drag him back into the abyss he'd escaped? Or was it Sarah, truly desperate, reaching out through the digital static of a dying connection? His mind raced, replaying fragmented memories. Sarah's radiant smile, her sharp intellect, the way their bond had fractured under the immense pressure of his dangerous world. He'd left to protect her, to give them both a semblance of peace. Now that peace was a lie. The moral dilemma clawed at him, a raw wound. Every instinct screamed run. But the raw, unvarnished plea, her implicit trust in him, sparked a perilous, undeniable resolve. He would go. He had to. The Thorn estate materialized out of the winding country roads like a gilded mirage, an opulent fortress shimmering with superficial elegance under the late afternoon sun. Security gates parted silently, revealing manicured lawns, fountains, and a grand mansion that bespoke old money and impenetrable power. Guests, impeccably dressed, moved with an almost ethereal grace, their laughter light and hollow. The atmosphere was unervingly perfect, a carefully constructed facade designed to disarm. Liam, his senses acutely sharpened, moved through the throng, every muscle coiled. Then he saw her, Sarah, a vision in white, breathtakingly beautiful. Yet her eyes held a fragility, a desperate stillness beneath the practiced smile. His worst fears crystallized, cold and undeniable. The message was real. She was a captive in plain sight, a butterfly pinned to an ostentatious display. Liam moved through the elegant crowd, an invisible current of tension pulling at him. His intelligence analyst instincts, honed over years of tracking shadows, immediately registered the subtle anomalies. Guests chatting casually, yet a discreet earpiece glinted beneath a man's silver hair. A wedding photographer, seemingly focused on candid shots, meticulously panned his lens across the periphery. Guards, not the usual casual security, but men with an almost military bearing, strategically positioned, their gazes sweeping the grounds with practiced precision. He felt a prickle of unease, a familiar sensation of being observed. Then it happened. A specific security detail, broad-shouldered and impassive, his eyes like chips of granite, met Liam's across the crowded lawn. A lingering, assessing look, a silent challenge. The man's gaze confirmed it. Liam was already under scrutiny. He was already a known variable in their carefully controlled equation. A shadow fell over Liam, and a smooth, baritone voice purred next to him. Liam, a surprise, but a welcome one. Victor Thorn, impeccable in his tailored tuxedo, extended a hand, his smile radiating charismatic charm. But as their hands met, Liam felt the unsettling coldness beneath the warmth, a momentary pressure that was less a greeting and more a claim. Thorn's eyes, however, were devoid of the smile, holding a cold, calculating glint that spoke of predatory intelligence. Sarah often spoke of you, Thorn mused, his gaze drifting towards Sarah across the room, a subtle possessiveness in his tone. A past life, she called it, a chapter closed. It wasn't a question, but a veiled probe, an assertion of ownership, testing Liam's reaction. The air thickened, a silent declaration of war veiled in polite pleasantries. Liam held his gaze, a storm brewing behind his own. Unyielding eyes, the cocktail hour pulsed with forced festivity, a backdrop to the silent, desperate drama unfolding. Liam, navigating the treacherous social landscape, kept Sarah in his peripheral vision. She was surrounded, a queen on display, yet her movements were stiff, her smiles brittle. Across the crowded ballroom, amidst the clinking glasses and manufactured laughter, her eyes, suddenly devoid of their practiced composure, met his. A flash of raw, unadulterated terror, quickly masked, but enough. With a subtle, almost imperceptible tilt of her head, a flick of her wrist, she directed his attention. Not to herself, but to a nearby table laden with wedding favors. Specifically, a small, intricately carved music box, personalized with their names. Her eyes, wide and pleading, conveyed an urgent, unspoken message. Look closer. Find the truth. The stakes were no longer theoretical. Sarah was screaming for help, and he had to listen. Amidst the celebratory din, a current of urgency pulled Liam towards the table laden with wedding favors. Each ornate box was identical, a testament to Victor's lavish excess. Yet Liam's focus was unwavering. His fingers, guided by instinct, found the familiar weight of the silver music box. Retreating to a secluded alcove, the muffled sounds of joy became a distant hum. With practiced precision, he eased open the lid. The delicate tune began, a cruel mockery of the turmoil within. But it wasn't the melody that mattered. Beneath the velvet lining, a hidden compartment yielded its secrets. A minuscule micro-SD card, a sliver of digital truth, and an impossibly small laser pointer pen, an instrument of silent communication. Etched into the inner lid, almost imperceptibly, were three stark words that solidified the terror of Sarah's plight. Data chip. Get it out. Don't involve police. The game had truly begun. The cool, metallic touch of the micro-SD card was a tangible link to Sarah's desperation. Liam, ever the ghost in the machine, found sanctuary in a dimly lit service corridor, far from prying eyes. His customized smartwatch, an innocuous piece of tech, transformed, revealing a hidden port. With a steady hand, he inserted the chip. The screen flickered to life, a mosaic of encrypted files, a digital labyrinth mirroring Victor's opulent, treacherous world. Names, dates, coordinates scrolled past, a grim ledger of illicit activity. Then, a chilling revelation. Detailed blueprints of the very estate he stood in, not just as a grand facade, but highlighting a sophisticated, hidden underground facility. A subterranean network of secrets, stretching beneath the manicured lawns. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was an excavation. The digital blueprints pulsed on his device, a silent scream etched into lines and angles. One specific area, deep within the cellar, glowed red, a designated access point, marked with an almost imperceptible symbol that only Sarah and Liam would recognize. It wasn't just an escape route, it was a critical vulnerability, a nerve center. In that moment, the true scope of Sarah's gambit unfurled before him. She wasn't merely asking to be saved. She was engineering a strategic takedown. Liam wasn't just her rescuer. He was her conduit, the unwitting instrument to expose Victor's entire, sprawling, illicit operation. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. He was no longer a silent observer, but an active participant, a fuse ignited by a past he'd tried desperately to bury. This wasn't a choice. It was a destiny. The path to the cellar was a winding maze of opulent deceit. Liam moved with the silent grace of a predator, each step measured, each shadow a potential ally. But then, a reflection in a polished vase, a telltale shift in ambient light, a security guard. Their eyes met for a fleeting, heart-stopping second. The element of surprise was lost. Adrenaline surged, a fiery current through his veins. The chase was on. Through a labyrinth of gilded corridors, past priceless tapestries and marble statues, Liam became a phantom, weaving through the grandeur. The guard, a hulking presence, was relentless, his heavy boots pounding a rhythmic threat. Liam ducked, vaulted, twisted, his years of training kicking in, narrowly evading outstretched hands, the air thick with the scent of fear and impending capture. The stakes had just been physically raised. The oppressive chill of the cellar was a stark contrast to the mansion's superficial warmth. Liam, having finally outmaneuvered his pursuer, found the hidden entrance, cleverly disguised as a wine rack. Pushing aside centuries of dust-laden bottles, he revealed a heavy, reinforced steel door, more bunker than cellar. Pressing his ear to the cold metal, he heard them, hushed, guttural voices, echoing from deep within. Fragments emerged, chillingly clear. The asset, the transaction, delivery in 72 hours. The words hung heavy in the stale air, painting a grim picture of human trafficking, a major illicit deal, or something far worse. This wasn't just Victor's hideaway. It was the nerve center of his depraved empire. Liam's stomach churned, the cold dread solidifying into an iron resolve. He wasn't just dealing with a dangerous ex. He was standing at the precipice of a monstrous operation. Hidden amongst the shadows near a discreet exterior window, Liam prepared for his move. He saw Sarah, momentarily alone, her back to the celebrating crowd, a fragile porcelain doll trapped in a gilded cage. It was now or never. With the tiny laser pen, a mere pinprick of crimson light, he sent his signal. A swift, deliberate flick, painting a fleeting red dot on the wall just beyond her line of sight, then subtly guiding it towards the cellar entrance, clearly visible from her vantage point. Her head, almost imperceptibly, tilted. Her eyes, meeting his for a fraction of a second through the glass, held a flicker of hope, swiftly replaced by grim, hardened determination. A silent pact. The communication was complete, the coordinated plan ignited. The weight of their shared understanding hung in the air, a dangerous secret between two souls bound by an unseen thread. Victor, a predatory instinct sharpening his gaze, moved like a shark through the throng. He seized Sarah's arm, pulling her roughly aside, his charming veneer dissolving into pure, unadulterated menace. Liam, hidden by a heavy velvet curtain, watched, helpless, as Victor's grip tightened, his words a venomous whisper. He couldn't hear them, but the terrifying message was clear in Victor's contorted face and Sarah's sudden, stark fear. A subtle gesture, a tightening of the jaw, a chilling glance towards the general direction of the service areas. A silent threat not just to Sarah, but through her, to Liam. Betrayal, Victor's eyes screamed, would come with unimaginable consequences. The luxurious wedding was merely a stage for his cruelty, and Sarah, a pawn in his brutal game. Liam's blood ran cold, a primal urge to intervene warring with the strategic necessity of his hidden position. As Victor's menacing grip on Sarah tightened, a pair of eyes caught Liam's from across the crowded ballroom. A seemingly innocuous wedding guest, young, dressed in an ill-fitting suit, was watching the exchange. Not with idle curiosity, but with a flicker of recognition, a subtle tightening around their own mouth. Was it fear, or something more? Their gaze darted from Victor and Sarah, then to Liam, a fleeting, almost imperceptible moment of shared understanding, or perhaps a silent warning. An unstated question hung in the air. Friend or foe? A junior operative, coerced into Victor's service, or an innocent caught in the crossfire? The subtle eye contact, a silent acknowledgement across the room, suggested a new, unpredictable variable had entered the deadly equation. The dance of shadows and secrets had just gained an unexpected player, whose allegiance remained a terrifying mystery. The flickering screens cast a stark, cold light on Liam's face. Each line of code, each decrypted file, painting a more chilling picture than he could have imagined. This wasn't just a simple blackmail scheme. It was a sprawling, hydra-headed beast. Victor Thorne's empire wasn't built on petty crime, but on a meticulously constructed network of illicit arms deals, political espionage, and influence peddling, reaching into the highest echelons of power across multiple continents. The wedding, that opulent charade, was merely a gathering of wolves, a clandestine summit where the threads of his dark web converged. Sarah, trapped within that gilded cage, wasn't just a victim, she was a spy, a ghost in the machine, tirelessly gathering the damning evidence, attempting to tear it all down from the inside. The weight of her sacrifice, the sheer audacity of her mission, settled heavily on Liam's shoulders. He wasn't just saving an ex-fiancée. He was now a silent partner in bringing down a global threat. A single keystroke, a silent prayer, and Liam initiated the sequence. From the microSD, a surge of code, a digital ghost, launched itself into Victor's fortified network. This wasn't a brute force attack, But a surgeon's cut, a pre-programmed cascade designed to exploit a known vulnerability, a subtle flaw in the sprawling security architecture. The goal, not to destroy, but to blind and disorient. A localized power blackout, timed to the second, would plunge critical sections of the estate into darkness, simultaneously triggering a system-wide glitch in the surveillance grid, a momentary blindness. Every fiber of Liam's being hummed with anticipation. He felt the digital currents shifting, the invisible gears grinding into motion. This was the fuse, the ignition. The window of opportunity would be fleeting, a fragile breath in the storm, but it was all he needed. There was no turning back now. The first domino had fallen. Then silence. A sudden, pregnant hush swallowed the polite chatter, the clink of glasses. And then darkness. The opulent ballroom, moments ago a dazzling spectacle of light and wealth, plunged into a suffocating, inky blackness. Emergency lights flickered, strobing erratically, painting chaotic shadows across the panicked faces of the elite guests. Alarms shrieked, shrill and piercing, a symphony of chaos. But beyond the immediate terror, something far more telling unfolded. Victor's security personnel, previously indistinguishable from generic event staff, shed their polite veneers. Their movements became sharp, instinctual, military precise. Flashlights cut through the gloom. Voices barked orders in low, urgent tones. This wasn't panic. It was a trained response, revealing the true, brutal nature of Victor's inner circle. The diversion had worked, exposing the finely tuned machinery of his control, now spiraling into a frantic, exposed scramble. In the cacophony of alarms and the frantic shouts echoing through the estate, Liam was a phantom. His movements were fluid, economical, each step calculated to capitalize on the engineered chaos. The air crackled with raw adrenaline, a metallic tang in his mouth. He reached the innocuous-looking wall panel, hidden behind a maintenance sign, his eyes scanning for the specific entry point Sarah had marked. His pulse hammered against his ribs like a drum. With a steady hand, he deployed the laser pen, a thin, crimson beam piercing the semi-darkness. It found its mark, a microscopic sensor, disabling it with an almost inaudible click. A panel recessed, revealing a reinforced door. Another precise sweep of the laser, a subtle trigger, and the heavy door hissed open, revealing a cool, blue-lit sanctuary of technology. The hidden, high-tech server room within the bunker facility lay before him, the heart of Victor's dark empire, now vulnerable. The server room hummed with the steady thrum of power, a cold, alien pulse. Liam moved with practiced urgency, his device connecting with a satisfying click to the main server array. The screen flared, displaying the chilling words, "Initiating data upload, secure public domain." A progress bar appeared, a digital timer to the end of Victor's world. Each agonizing pixel, each percentage point, felt like an eternity. He could hear them now, the distant, frantic shouts growing closer, the heavy thud of boots on concrete, echoing through the ventilation shafts. They were closing in. Sweat beaded on his brow, blurring his vision. He pushed back the rising panic, forcing himself to focus on the relentless march of the progress bar. Every second was a battle, every bite a victory. The truth, Sarah's truth, was bleeding out into the open, but time was a luxury he no longer possessed. Through the chaos and the flickering emergency lights, Sarah saw him. Liam, silhouetted in the server room's blue glow, connected, uploading. In that instant, she understood. The mission, her sacrifice, it was all coming to fruition. But Victor's men were closing in, their relentless pursuit a death knell. There was only one option left. With a surge of defiant courage, she stepped into the spotlight, directly confronting Victor Thorne. Her voice, clear and strong, cut through the din. "It's over, Victor. Everyone knows." Her words, a calculated taunt, a desperate, heroic stand, drew his venomous gaze, his furious attention, and a significant portion of his elite security away from the vulnerable server room. She knew the cost, felt the cold hand of fate reaching for her, but the truth, the liberation, was worth it. This might be her last, desperate act, but it would ensure Liam's success. The progress bar blinked. Upload complete. The words were a gunshot, a signal for Liam to move. Sarah's diversion was a thunderclap, drawing Victor's fury, buying him precious, fleeting moments. He ripped his device free, the hum of the server room fading behind him as he burst back into the chaotic, semi-darkened estate. He was instantly spotted. There! A guttural shout ripped through the air. The hunt was on. Adrenaline coursed through his veins, a raw, burning fire. Footsteps pounded behind him, shouts echoing down the ornate corridors. He vaulted over overturned tables, dodged stray gunfire, the air thick with plaster dust and the acrid smell of ozone. Every shadow was a threat, every doorway a potential ambush. It was a desperate, primal dash for survival, through a world now irrevocably shattered. His only compass the fading echoes of Sarah's courageous stand. The realization hit Victor Thorne like a physical blow. Sarah's defiant gaze, Liam's escape from the server room. The pieces clicked into place with chilling clarity. Betrayal. His meticulously constructed empire, the very foundation of his power, was unraveling, bleeding out into the public domain with every passing second. A cold, calculating rage, far more terrifying than any outburst, hardened his features. His eyes, usually veiled, now burned with an infernal light. He turned to his elite guards, his voice a low, dangerous growl that cut through the remaining chaos. Apprehend him, dead or alive. I don't care. But those files, they cannot stand. The order was absolute, a death warrant. The consequences of failure were unthinkable. The hunt for Liam Maxwell had escalated, becoming a ruthless, no-holds-barred pursuit to silence the truth before it could utterly destroy Victor's entire criminal empire. The wind howled a savage symphony, whipping Liam's hair as he scrambled across the treacherous slate, each footfall a gamble against gravity. Victor's enforcers, relentless shadows, scaled the perilous incline behind him, their heavy boots thudding a terrifying rhythm. Liam felt the sting of adrenaline, a familiar rush from a life he thought he'd left behind, now resurrected in this desperate fight for survival. He launched himself over a gap, fingers scrabbling for purchase on a cold, wrought iron gutter, the abyss a dizzying blur below. With a practiced flick, the laser pen became a weapon, a blinding crimson spear that momentarily disoriented a pursuing guard, sending him careening off balance, triggering a cascade of dislodged tiles. The sprawling estate below, a fortress of opulence, was now a death trap, and Liam, a ghost from Sarah's past, fought tooth and nail for a future he wasn't sure they'd ever share. A guttural cry escaped Liam as he narrowly dodged a lead pipe, the impact reverberating through the structure, sending shivers down his spine. His device, clutched in a bloodied hand, vibrated violently. A stark, white notification flashed across the screen. Upload complete. In that exact heartbeat, distant sirens began their mournful, escalating crescendo, a wail of justice cutting through the night. The sound was a symphony of inevitability, growing louder, closer, signaling the converging authorities. Sarah's desperate gambit had paid off. Victor Thorne's empire, built on shadows and secrets, was now undeniably exposed. Liam paused, a moment of grim satisfaction etched on his face amidst the chaotic dance of survival. The mission was accomplished, but the fight, the real fight, had just begun, and the sirens were merely the opening notes to a much larger, more dangerous opera. The wail of the sirens became an overwhelming cacophony as Liam navigated the final, desperate dash through the estate's crumbling interior. Smoke filled the air, the distant shouts of officers mingling with the crash of breaking glass. He caught a fleeting glimpse of Victor, a cornered animal, frantically smashing a hard drive against a grand, marble pillar, his face contorted in a primal scream of rage and defeat. Their eyes met across the chaos, a silent, venomous exchange. It wasn't a final stand. It was a desperate scramble for survival, a blur of motion and flashing lights. Liam knew his role wasn't to capture, but to ensure the data's survival and disappear. The true fate of Sarah and Victor became obscured in the escalating pandemonium, a testament to the unpredictable, violent nature of their world, leaving an open wound of uncertainty. The estate, once a symbol of twisted power, now writhed under a blanket of flashing emergency lights, a shattered monument to Victor's downfall. Liam, a phantom in the swelling tide of first responders, moved with practiced ease. He pulled a stolen paramedic jacket tighter, its sterile fabric a stark contrast to the grit and blood clinging to his skin. He blended, became another anonymous face in the organized chaos, the siren's mournful song a fitting soundtrack to his escape. He didn't look back to gloat, but to imprint the scene into his memory, the cost of Sarah's desperate plea. The mission was complete, the conspiracy exposed, but Sarah's fate remained a gaping, agonizing void. He carried the weight of it all, a victory etched with the indelible scars of what transpired, a quiet torment beneath the guise of an ordinary man. Weeks blurred into a quiet, almost suffocating normalcy. News reports, clipped and dispassionate, confirmed Victor Thorne's vast criminal enterprise had been dismantled, a cascading domino effect of arrests echoing Sarah's extraordinary, heroic mission. Her name, however, remained a whisper in the wind, confirmed dead, missing, or deep in witness protection, her sacrifice vaguely hinted at, never fully revealed. Liam, a man forever changed, lived a quieter life, the noise of the past a dull roar in his memory. He often found himself tracing the worn contours of the cheap trinket Sarah had given him, a tangible link to a love and a terror he couldn't forget. One morning, the light caught it just right, revealing a new, minuscule message subtly etched upon its surface, a single, elegant symbol. A breath caught in Liam's throat. Hope, loss, a haunting viral, what if, that lingered, twisting the bitter taste of victory into something achingly sweet, hinting at a future yet unwritten. The silence that followed the final shot was absolute, a profound emptiness that echoed the one now settling in my chest. The smoke still curled from the barrel, a ghostly whisper of the chaos that had just consumed us. He lay there, not the monster I'd imagined, but a man, broken and betrayed, just like me. The truth, when it finally spilled from his dying lips, was a poison. Not a grand conspiracy of shadowy figures, but a small, cold calculus of ambition, fear, and a desperate grab for power by those I once respected most. There was no justice here, no clean victory. Only a cycle of blood and lies, the threads of which stretched further than I could ever unravel. The files I clutched, soaked with rain and something darker, were my only proof. Proof that would shatter legacies, ignite a firestorm. But the cost had been everything. My past, my future, the last vestiges of my humanity. I looked out at the dawn, not the promise of a new day, but the harsh reality of one forever stained. The city awoke around me, oblivious, indifferent. I was a ghost now, untethered, carrying a burden no one else could comprehend. The system hadn't been defeated. It had simply shed a skin, ready to grow back thicker, more resilient. All I had done was tear a wound, a bloody, gaping hole that might never heal. My fight wasn't over. It had only just begun, shifting from the visible enemy to the invisible rot. A silent war I would wage alone, until there was nothing left but dust and echoes.